That fact. So without further ado, here are some of the great moments in CCF history. And speaking of Juarez, does anyone remember that time Ray Lemoyne and Courtney Swanson got left behind on our trip to dinner? I do. I bet they do. That story gets told every Saturday morning before we leave. We haven't left anybody behind since. Remember that time Randy Airwood and John Boudreaux stole the plastic lobster in my truck and took it on a trip out west and then lost poor Larry the lobster? No way. Good news, about 2 years ago, Emma Wilson, after hearing that story, found him. He was on Amazon. The bad news is he costs twice as much as the original Larry lobster. Nowadays, he's $2. Remember that time when my dog Biggie found that possum in the water fountain? Which ended up leading to the Great Flood, which clearly was the 1 month ago biblical sign of the COVID plague to come. Oh my gosh. Remember when Tracy Adams' Topple's convertible was brought into the CCF house and put on cinder blocks by the infamous late night crew at CCF? And poor Sophie Van Dusselier was planning to take Tracy's car to an interview the next morning. Oops. Speaking of pranks, remember that time when Robert Braden pranked Rick, the interns, and the Big Saps that the eggs in the Easy Playground wouldn't be delivered on time to build at our big New Orleans build weekend with 400 people? Poor Timothy Shane skipped a study session to pray that God would miraculously deliver that playground on time. Sorry about that. Speaking of people being mad, remember that time that when CCF played AASU in flag football, and that guy knocked the absolute crap out of me with all of CCF there after Bible study, and we almost had a massive brawl? Speaking of intimidation, remember that time that the Sigma Chi guys kept hitting tennis balls at CCF and unfortunately hit the 6'4", 250-pound former tight end at Auburn University, Lee Sellers, in the That ended that game for the day. Remember when Craig Topple and Terrence Jones kept Neal up all night playing Super Tecmo Ball? I do, Craig. Oh my gosh. Speaking of chickens, remember that time when some mysterious and still unknown prankster left 2 live chickens in the CCF house just before the start of Thursday night this fall? Nice. Thank God for a bird dog to find them. Remember that time we did a Chicago intermission trip? And the van got broken into 10 minutes after our arrival, and the rats in the gym ate all our bread, and we almost had a super awkward argument between our mission host and one of our students, and they called the men leaders and the females workers, and finally, after baiting rats out to throw basketballs at them all night long, the rats finally got their revenge and bit Brian Brennan's hand because he still had Ritz cracker recipe. Yeah, we never went back to Chicago. Oh my gosh. Remember when almost everyone slept through the almost head-on collision on the road trip back from Carlsbad Caverns on the Robert Bardos trip? We haven't been back there either. I know Mike Nelson remembers. Remember that one time Dennis Wilson was wrong? Remember that time when Boo and Heather Powell led that trip to Juarez that was filmed for PBS, and we had to keep circling the block for a good site arrival shot? The house never got built. Remember Jefferson Davis and his sweet dance moves? And I don't know if there's going to be a line here in a minute in the bathroom break, but Jefferson Davis still owns the first place in line for anything at CCF from a Missions Thermometer silent auction 20 years ago. So don't go that way. Remember Fania and Abby dropping the key 4th down catch at the flag football championship? Or that time we went to the 19-inning Braves game and he jumped in front of me and dropped the foul ball right to me. Or that time, but maybe the best one was the time he portrayed Mike Vick in our epic illegal sheep fighting skit. I think Jay Brunson was the winning sheep that night. Remember Mallory Dorton tearing her ACL in a flamingo football halftime dance? When people stopped to try and help her, she said, "No, just keep dancing." Speaking of timber, remember the time Shady the Tree fell on the house and knocked the power out to half of Midtown Atlanta? And then Emily Cole got a replacement Shady donated by Trees Atlanta, and the CCFers narrowed down his new name to Sir Leaf Woodington III, or Emily's preferred name, Patrick. I just call him Shady Jr. Remember Kent Bray giving everyone plans on Friday night with his trademark name, Friday Night Freaks? Remember Chris Byrne verbally taunting the Fiji goalie before taking his penalty kick and saying, "Dude, just shut up and get in the goal already. It's not going to matter what you do." And it didn't. Remember that time when Tyler Brazelton received a Grubhub delivered surprise potato at the Ranch Park meeting from an out-of-town Andrew Allen? If you don't know what a surprise potato is, apparently you just give someone a potato when they don't expect it. Because usually most people are walking around expecting to receive. Remember when Orrin Lincoln played underwater hockey? Underwater hockey, that's a thing? It is. Remember when Tyler Canterbury created a Harlem Shuffle video at our Juarez site? Remember Dennis Wilson doing all my homework for me? I do. Remember Andrew Brazel and Robert Braden throwing end zone pylons at each other's nuts during the football game? Remember Melissa Liston complaining about her teammates on the girls' flag football team, and Neal's just saying to her, I hear you, Melissa, but the problem is that your teammates aren't any good. And finally, a couple of years ago, we had a group of students that formed a club that played with fake swords at CCF. They called it Sword Club. Anyway, when Neal was with Terrence Jones last Thanksgiving, telling him this after a prolonged time of laughing and disbelief, Terrence Jones said to me, "Neal, do students not want to have sex anymore?" To which I responded, "No, Terrence, I guess not." Thanks, y'all, for making my 25 years a constant adventure and so